On August 7th, 1912, Theodore Roosevelt is nominated for a third term as president by the Progressive Party. But why was Roosevelt allowed to run for a third term? And what nickname became associated with him during that run? Also, who ended up winning the 1912 presidential election? Republican Theodore Roosevelt served 2 terms as U.S. president from 1901 to 1909. Keep in mind that this was more than 40 years before the 22nd Amendment, which today limits presidents to a maximum of 2 terms. Nevertheless, Roosevelt initially chose to honor the precedent set back in 1796 by George Washington, and did not run for a third term in 1908. He did nonetheless handpick a successor, his Secretary of War, William Howard Taft, who, with Roosevelt's backing, easily won the Republican nomination and then the general election in 1908 to become the 27th U.S. president. However, Roosevelt and some Republicans became dissatisfied with the job Taft was doing as president, so Roosevelt decided to buck tradition and try for a third term, creating a rift in the Republican Party. Despite Roosevelt's popularity, the Republican National Convention decided to stick with Taft as the 1912 nominee. Unwilling to step aside, Roosevelt and his allies created a third party called the Progressive Party, which was nicknamed the Bull Moose Party, a moniker that stemmed from an exchange between Roosevelt and reporters in June 1912. The 53-year-old former president was asked if he were fit to run, and he replied that he felt, quote, as strong as a bull moose. Roosevelt's bull moose reputation was reinforced during a campaign stop in Milwaukee in October, when he was shot in the chest by former saloon keeper John Schrank. This occurred while Roosevelt was standing in an open-top car outside the Gilpatrick Hotel, about to head to the Milwaukee Auditorium where he was scheduled to give a speech. Schrank, who suffered from mental illness, claimed the ghost of none other than former President William McKinley had come to him in a dream, directing him to assassinate Roosevelt. The force of the bullet was slowed by Roosevelt's eyeglasses case and a bundle of papers, saving his life. With the slug lodged in his chest, he still insisted on going ahead with his speech, which lasted about an hour. He opened his remarks that day with these words, "Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." In November, Roosevelt and Taft predictably split the Republican vote, making it an easy victory for Democrat Woodrow Wilson, who won 435 of the 531 electoral votes. Despite the overwhelming electoral victory, Wilson only won 41.8% of the popular vote, while Roosevelt and Taft's combined popular vote total exceeded 50%. Wilson would go on to lead the nation for the next 8 years, which included the massive global conflict that came to be known as World War I, and the complex peace negotiations that followed. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1819, Simón Bolívar leads South American insurgents to victory over Spanish forces at the Battle of Boyacá. In 1915, during World War I's Gallipoli campaign, Australians suffer high casualties in the Battle of the Neck. In 1942, the US begins its first major offensive of World War II by invading the island of Guadalcanal. In 1959, US satellite Explorer 6 takes the first American photograph of Earth from space. In 1964, Congress passes the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, giving Johnson authority to enter the Vietnam War. In 1990, U.S. President Bush responds to Iraq's invasion of Kuwait by ordering Operation Desert Shield. In 1998, U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania are bombed by al-Qaeda terrorists, killing 224 people. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. Which member of the Beatles came up with the idea for the iconic Abbey Road album cover? George Harrison, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, or Ringo Starr? Liked learning about Teddy Roosevelt and the Bull Moose Party? Then you'll love this one about the man who won the 1912 election, Woodrow Wilson. Tap the screen to keep the story going on Today in History.